Hello, I'm Dave Peach, and this is the Crawfordsville Peachcast, sponsored by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. See them in person or at tricountybank.net. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. Crawfordsville Peachcast. I am Dave Peach, and we are joined by Dave Meyer. Dave, how are you?
Dave, I'm excited. We've got a special day here. We combine our love for these movies, in this case, The Great Buck Howard, with a wrinkle. We take the Peach-Kreskin relationship and leverage it into bringing a third person into the Untoasted version, and it's the inspiration for the movie, Dave. How'd you do this?
It's amazing how it all came together. A 2008 movie, The Great Buck Howard, starring John Malkovich as Buck Howard. Troy Gable was played by Colin Hanks, and you might know his dad. His dad is named Tom Hanks. And in the movie, he played his father.
Yeah, Tom Hanks with some big hair. I think it was like Da Vinci Code hair.
That was very big hair, yeah. Emily Blunt, Valerie Brennan. You probably know what Emily was in before and after.
Well, if you're a fan of The Office, she married Jim. Okay. But no, she has been, her big breakthrough movie, I think, was The Devil Wears Prada, where she was one of the assistants to Meryl Streep. And she's been in a lot of stuff since. And, Steve Zahn has a great kind of funky little role in this as the Cincinnati driver as well.
He was Kenny. I got it written down here.
You got Kenny and Ricky Jay. I like Ricky Jay in any movie, and he's never in them for too much. He played the manager, I guess, right?
Gil Bellamy. See, I actually wrote down some things because Kreskin's going to be on the show. I've got stuff written down. I'm not I'm not relying on you solely for the.
No, we're more prepared.
For the background. Okay. We are sponsored.
Having Kreskin.
I got to get my sponsors in. We are sponsored by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. Also, we are sponsored by Central Indiana Rubber Products. Hello, Todd. Will you say that too?
Hello, Todd.
Todd and I have had lunch on a couple of occasions. We've had some great conversations. And if this were video, I could show you the lovely CIR t-shirt that Todd gave me. It's Central Indiana Rubber Products, and they're also going by CIR, and we should have a new commercial for them coming up, hopefully in this particular show. I think Dane can make that happen for us, but it is with great honor that we salute Todd, and we've had a couple of great lunches. So today, The Great Buck Howard, an 2008 movie. It starred, I guess it starred John Malkovich. He's the star, right?
Well, yes, but the only thing I would say is, if you haven't seen this, it's told from our protagonist per se is the Troy character, which is Colin Hanks. It's the focus of the movie is Buck, right? Because everything's kind of in reflection of him, but we kind of follow the narrative through his journey as his road manager.
So stay tuned. We'll have Kreskin coming up after the break. And then after our conversation with Kreskin, Dave, Meyer, and yours truly, we'll give you some more details and our thoughts on The Great Buck Howard. This is the Crawfordsville Peachcast.
Are you looking for great prices? Do you have a smartphone? Of course you do. This is Bria French. With Tri-County Bank's Merchant Discount Network, you can get discounts on food, entertainment, tools, and so much more. All you need is a smartphone and your TCB Smart Rewards checking account. Cost savings are only a click away. Terms and conditions may apply. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Crawfordsville Peachcast and a very special episode of Untoasted today. We're going to talk about The Great Buck Howard, and we have the person that the movie was based upon. Kreskin is here. The Amazing Kreskin joins us. Dave Meyer is here as well. All three of us on the podcast at one time. We'll welcome Kreskin first. How are you today, sir?
I am in great shape, great condition. The psychologist says that there's a lot of hope for me. Not that I see a psychologist, I really never have. But if we can't if we can in this day and age laugh at ourselves, we're in gigantic trouble, as you know. You guys know.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I supply a lot of material for that. Dave, what are your thoughts as we get set to break down Buck Howard with Kreskin?
Dave, I'm inspired. We're here with the inspiration for Buck Howard, and I enjoyed the movie, so I'm wanting to hear from the man, and I want to talk about it. So it's an exciting day on Untoasted, the Peachcast, Dave.
Well,
I've got a comment when you asked Dave. You said, Dave, what are your thoughts? I got to be honest with you, and don't let the listeners hear this. I wasn't getting any thoughts. I'm only joking, guys. I'm only kidding.
It's been that way for years, but I'm hoping today changes it.
All right.
Well,
good spirits then.
Well, Kreskin, tell us how this movie came about. Were you contacted by Tom Hanks? Were you contacted by the producers? When did you first hear that there was going to be a movie called The Great Buck Howard?
You know, I have to tell you something. When this was being considered as a movie, I really hadn't heard very much at all, because these people, are very creative. They're working on their own and what have you. And then word started getting back to me that there was intrigue in producing a movie based on yours truly. I said, oh my God, this is going to be have they undergone psychiatric treatment at all and to do the movie, what have you? But anyway, the bottom line is I think they did a fantastic job. And I was used very, very rarely as a consultant for the movie, because they did so much research on me that they pretty much captured, as you saw in the story, the very essence of my work. And of course, that's not, and I've got something you're going to get a kick out of when I reveal this to the listeners for the first time. But when the key to the movie, of course, was the handshake, which of course, as you know, Malkovich, who plays me in the movie, was practicing this all over the place. People were telling me they were going crazy. They were getting backaches and what have you, because whenever he had a chance, he was shaking hands with people. Well, and incidentally, the way he shakes hands is the way I shake hands. But I would have to say there is a slight, and I would like to say the word gargantuan, but let's just say there's a slight difference in the quality in which he and I shake hands. We don't usually pull people apart. But what is fascinating is, can you believe in this day and age, when right now, what are we going through? We're going through something very unhealthy, very unholy, very negative aspect of our culture. It's the coming elections. What we have to joke about them all the time, of course. But can you believe that there is a sheet out now given to people who are running for elections, and each sheet has approximately 30 different pieces of advice on handshaking on the campaign trail, advising people how to protect themselves. Isn't that, I mean, I never paid attention to these things, because there are times when I've shaken hands after shows with almost 200 people, or sometimes 300 people. So I haven't had to figure out a way to protect my handshake, what have you. But it's crazy. They have in amongst the 3 or 4 things that I marked of the 30. They said choose exercise that includes your whole body, emphasizing muscles in the back, neck, shoulders, arms, and hands, and use twin hands whenever you shake hands. Well, I don't usually use twin hands. And they mentioned to practice by squeezing the foam of those rubber balls and so forth that you have. And when you shake hands with someone, put your arm around their shoulders. Well, I haven't done that for decades, but this is 30 some pieces. And if anyone's in trouble and needs great help, just tell them to contact us. We'll send them the information to save their arms. I thought you'd get it. Would you have believed that they would put something out like with 30 pieces of advice in there?
Hey, handshake analytics. We need that, and that was a big part of the movie. John Malkovich starred as Buck Howard, and he did such a fantastic job. You're as you watch that movie, what do you think?
I couldn't get over it. I couldn't get over his mannerisms and what have you. He really did study me, and he followed me very, very closely and what have you. I I got such a kick out of it. By the way, before that and since then, what's his name got a tremendous compliments about playing me in a movie, and it was Jim Carrey who played me in a movie called Live in Color, and it was one of these. He did do the movie all the time, but there was one scene, one movie where he was going to play me in the movie, and he got tremendous amount of compliments from people in business. Said that he had done a brilliant job. He's a very fine actor. I mean, let's face it. And of course, other than that, who did you have who played me, but never mentioned my name, even though I did 66 appearances for him, 66 with Johnny Carson. But he created a character that, the character was? The name of the character?
Karnak.
Yeah, Karnak.
Yeah. and every time he came to a table, he slightly tilted as if he was slightly inebriated. Now, that was not that Carson ever saw me slightly inebriated, but it was a nice touch, and it did me no harm at all. So when I look back on these scenes like this, Jim Carrey did just a brilliant job in the movie, and there's no question about it. I've been and then who would have ever dreamt? I cannot believe the amount of articles about the movie, the name of the movie, and the reason I have to look it up is talk about names of movie being confusing. It's called the Super Mario Brothers movie. I'm sure you all know what the movie is. And
Yes.
And as a result of that movie, my name is not mentioned in the movie in any way, shape, or form. I have more articles all over the place because after the movie came out, there became an obsession with people of buying peaches. And places sold out in many parts of the United States on the amount of peaches sold. And then some writers came up and said, you know what they're doing? They're following in the footsteps of something that Kreskin lectures about, and how we can become so obsessed with an idea. In the movie, obsessed people with the idea, and people were buying about bundles and bundles of peaches and couldn't stop buying them because of the effect of the movie. So once in a while, I'll talk to folks listening to me. Just don't let these two guys hear this, but I'll talk to these two guys and find out something like a leverage using them as a vehicle, because you imagine people buy. I do something in my performances today where I have a group of peaches on the stage and I mention the movie. It's a very fascinating effect. But I have some go to the stage and grab one of the peaches and squeeze them and close their eyes. And I said, don't put the peach down, open your eyes. And as long as they hold the peach, they can't open their eyes. They struggle, they can't. So I've done with 5 different people on stage and say, my God, I can't open my eyes. But as soon as they let go, the eyes open. So that peaches thing became a very, very fascinating phenomena. And I didn't know what the heck was going on, but I guess you heard about it and what have you, My life has been an adventure.
Sure.
I'm 88 years old. I jog 2 miles every day. I have for 20 years, or walk very briskly. When the weather's gotten very hot, I don't jog. I move around a lot, but I'm just a person who's a very active individual, and I love my work. Still do, as you know, my check test. You heard about that. You all know about that. You know about the check test or not?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it was big in the movie. So how did the movie capture that, or did the movie capture that
it captured it effectively. I just got to tell you something that happened a few days ago. I was doing a private performance at a person's, this rather prominent, wealthy individual booked me at his home, and it was about 18 people, and they hid my check. But I left the house. I said, a committee of you take me outside, hide the check anywhere in the house you wish, upstairs, downstairs, but use your own judgment. And then they called me and said, Kreskin, we want you to know it's been hidden anywhere in this house. So I go upstairs, I walk through, no one is talking to me, no one speaks to me, I don't ask any questions. This is not something that's rigged in any way, shape, or form. If I don't find my fee, I don't get paid. And I walk, I say, can I open this door? And they said, sure, whatever door you need to open the door. and it looks like a bedroom. And I go to a number of one of the closets. I open the closet door, and I move my hand along jackets and things that are hidden there. I reach into the jacket pocket and pull out what looks like my check. And I said, "Wait a minute. Now, I've never had this done before." I take the check in my hand, I turn it over, and it turns out they had, I can't explain how they did it, but it was legally done. They had separated two parts of the check and then said, "Oh, Kreskin, just so you know, the other check is hidden somewhere in the house here, but we're going to pay you anyway." I said, "No, no, no, no. Don't pay me anyway. I've never had this done as a challenge before. You all know where it is." They say, "We sure as hell do." I said, "All right, one of you concentrate. I don't ask any questions." I went downstairs to the second floor, went into a bathroom area, and they had a few on each floor. And I opened the bathroom door, and there were clothes hanging there. And I reached in and took out the other half of the check, and I found it. And I said, "You don't have to pay me. I caught my feet." Guess what? A few days later, I got in the mail a further amount to my check. They added it. So anytime you guys hire me, don't pull any fast ones because I'll expect to add more to it. And that's something they paid me extra for that. And I didn't expect it. I did not want it.
Well,
Anyway,
they threw you a curve and you knocked it out of the park.
one of the most traumatic incidents of my life was um, a lot of my shows have been outdoors, and this was it was in the States. I'm just not thinking if it was in July, and I'm just thinking of the city right now, but it was outdoors. And my check was hidden outdoors, but I was taken inside a building, and they hid it anywhere in this crowded area outdoors. There's about 1,000 people. So I come back out. I'm walking down an aisle, and there's a walkway there, and people have parted because they left room for me to walk. And I'm walking down the aisle, and I walk down the other aisle. I come in front of a man, and I walk away, and I walk from him, and I shake my head. And I'm obviously having difficulty. I can't seem to get a clear picture. I said, finally, when I came to this gentleman, I said, "Sir, this is going to sound crazy. I've never asked this in my life. But would you open your mouth?" And he opened his mouth. There's no check. I said, "I apologize. I apologize completely." So I walk away from him. So help me God, and you can hear a pin drop, even though there's hundreds of people outdoors now watching. And I come to him again, and I said, "Sir, I've got to ask you something. I've never asked this of anybody in my life. Does this have anything to do with the roof of your mouth? I wish we had a camera then. I wish this were television." Because he reached in his mouth, took out his upper plates, and handed me my check.
Oh, my.
So my check has been in, and then some private affairs, which I will not describe anything. I can't explain where, because the people knew each other well enough, and nobody was embarrassed as to where they hit on the person. So you know, this is like an adventure in my career. There's nobody in the world is doing this regularly in their program, and it's one of the great challenges of my life. That's all I can tell you.
Well, a question real quick about the movie, and this is something that I did not know, if indeed it's true. Did you sing in your show? Do you get a piano and sing?
I play the piano. I do sing the words to the. I don't say the words. I say the words, but I'm not a singer. But yes, I play the piano because when I was 5 years old, not 5 years old, 12 years old, my aunts were from Italy, and some of them were born in the United States. And my aunt always played in my grandmother's house, who was from Sicily, played the piano. And one day I'm sitting in the living room listening to her play the piano, and I'm like about 8 or 9 years old. And I walk over to the piano. First time I sat at it and started to play the same piece that she played, except in simple ways. And it became an exciting moment in my life and for the family. And then I took piano lessons. My teacher, Mrs. Guy, tried to convince me. She said, you must consider. She wanted me to become a concert pianist. And I said, no, I know what I want to do for a living, because when I was 5 years old, I saw a comic strip, and I didn't read then, but my parents would read the comic books to me and everything else, and then comic newspapers. And there was a comic called Mandrake the Magician. He wasn't a magician; he had hypnotic abilities, and he would solve crimes. And I knew I was going to be like that person. Starting out, I started out with some magic, but then I started dealing with the mind. And in my teens, I started finding my check, or things that were hidden. I didn't do my check then. I waited until I was in my 20s and what have you. So my career became all because of a comic strip, and no one taught me anything. I tried to become what I believed was be necessary in accomplishing something. And finally, in my performances, when I said to my family, I'm going to do something with my check, don't get upset, and I think I can do it, they would have told me not to do it. They would advise me not to. But I said this one day, I said, I'm going to hand you my check, a group from the audience. Some of you take me out of the building or out of the theater or the auditorium, hide my check. If I don't find it, I won't get paid. And of course, became a tremendous signature in my life. And a lot of performers say to me, Kreskin, even if I did what you did, I don't think I could stand the pressure every show, because I have failed 11 or 12 times to find my check, and lost sometimes 2,000, 2,000 or more dollars. But one of the most famous scenes, I no longer do I do the check test now always, but I can no longer perform, or I can perform. I perform in a lot of casinos in Vegas and even outside the country, but I'm not allowed to gamble anymore, because some years ago, and my road manager, who's still around, but he doesn't work for me anymore, but he remembers the scene. He's with me out in a foreign country, and I sat down and put down $20 and started playing blackjack. And the place had shut down. The places had all stopped playing after about 2 hours. When I finished playing, they said, "Sir, we're going to have a security guard leave with you, and we'll take these are the checks and what have you. But I can't play in a casino anymore, because that particular day became history. I had won $22,400.
Oh, wow.
So by the way, anytime you guys are interested in playing blackjack, just let me know. I'll
An incredible. Well, you've been everywhere in your travels. Where do you go to get inspired? Where do you like to go?
Well, you mean to perform or to play blackjack? I can't.
Or just to whatever you like to do. I'd say not to perform, but for anything fun that you
really
still legally do. Okay.
Yeah, I can't really see, because I've played all over the world. I love Spain. I love. I've been in Japan, where my audience and my people on stage did not speak English, but they had a translator, and the performance worked. It was a very dramatic, one of the most dramatic nights of my entire life. The guy that was hosting the affair spoke both Japanese and English, but everybody else did not. But with an interpreter, I was able to read thoughts. I was able to pick up ideas and what have you, and it was very dramatic. And I've worked with audiences that were blind, but still able to succeed, so long as I can communicate in some way. And that is the problem that is now serious in this great country, which I love very deeply. We are not paying attention to each other as much as we once did. We don't hear each other anymore. And one of the errors are, and I don't condemn it, because one of the greatest adventures we have is the cell phone. There are young people today who will sit on their cell phone 4 to 6 hours a day. In China, a young person is only allowed to be on a cell phone more than an hour or an hour and a half time, because people are not hearing each other as much as they really don't. And if you pay attention, they don't even listen. People don't tell jokes as much as they once did. It's a sad culture, because one of the most important things in my life is I hear what other people are saying, and you got to listen to what they're saying. Folks, let me give you some advice. When you hear what someone's saying, don't be ready to suddenly angrily disagree with them. You can disagree with them, but go on with something else and joke about something else because we all have different feelings about things. If I told you some of the impressions I'm getting about two guys that I'm talking to right now, oh my God, I'd have to bless myself, but that's okay.
We understand. We totally understand.
You understand. But my work, I've got to tell you, my work has been an adventure. I mean, the situations that what people don't know is I believe we all have to give back something in our lives for the success that we have. And I give back in other ways what people don't know greatly about, but has been given a lot of publicity in recent years. I have worked on law enforcement cases all my career and never received a penny for it because I felt that's the one thing I can give back. It is nothing for me, and this has been discussed just recently in an interview because it's gotten well known that my hearing has been such. It hasn't as great, the hearing isn't as great as maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but I've been called on a number of crime cases in which the mafia was involved. And the police calling me said, Kreskin, they're going to meet in such and such a place. One of them was here in New Jersey, a rather prominent eating place, but he also played what's the machine where the balls jump around and everything? The game you play.
Pinball.
Pinball machine.
Pinball.
So it was a noisy place. And they said they're going to meet there in the back of the place in the same room. Do you think you can attend? Because it's pretty well known that I can sit in a restaurant now and hear as many as a dozen conversations at the same time. So we went there. One of the worst scenes you can imagine. I never played a pinball machine, but they're noisy. And the place was damn noisy. It was noisy. And the mafia group met for almost an hour. And I clearly was able to reconstruct about 46 minutes of that hour of their conversation because I have that kind of hearing. So this is something I've been able to give law enforcement in cases. There's been other cases where memories have been forgotten and confused and sometimes able to clarify and bring back thoughts of memories. Now, there are certain people, I don't want you folks that are listening to this to jump to any conclusions. Certain people I deal with and have been interviewed by that I'm not sure I'll be able to pick up anything in their brains, but that doesn't mean there's nothing there. Nothing serious, guys. They're just smiling, and I know even though I may not see them at this moment.
Wow.
And Dave, anything you want to ask the amazing Kreskin?
Well, I was going to say, you've been famous for most of your adult life.
88 years old I am.
Well, when you, obviously you couldn't meet Mandrake, but who have you met along the way that you were impressed by?
I have to tell you about one of the most moving moments of my entire life. I've worked on with almost all the celebrities you can imagine through the years, and Mike Douglas, Merv Griffin, up to today, the people in movies, what have you. But one night, there was a private affair. I think it was in Hollywood. But they said, Kreskin, we have someone in the audience. We know you'd like to meet him. He'd like to meet you. And he's the writer of Mandrake, the magician, the author of Mandrake. Chuck Young, I think is the name. I get the name that confuse it, but you can look it up, folks. It's the author of Mandrake. But anyway, at the end of the program, I introduced him from the audience, and he stood up and he bowed. Then he came forward. One of the most moving moments of my entire life. He said, folks, I've been writing Mandrake for years. It's so flattering to hear that of all people, Kreskin is a fan of my cartoon character. And the character, by the way, was not only a comic book, but it was in the Sunday papers every Sunday, and in the daily papers. That's how popular the Mandrake. His assistant was Lothar, who was out of the country, but a very protective person. And Narda was, I guess, his lady friend, what have you. So he's telling me, he said, I've met hundreds and hundreds of people through the years. And I want you to know that of all the people I've seen or met, Kreskin is the one and only person coming closest to being the character in my book, my character Mandrake. That was one of the most moving moments I couldn't even speak because it was so touching. No one asked him to say anything, but he decided to come up and announce that.
Well, that's amazing. And you brought his character to life. That's got to be a great gift that he felt.
And the character was so colorful because he wore I don't dress that way. He wore a cape and a white tie and tails and what have you, but he always gestured hypnotically and what have you. And so popular and popular all over the world because it was in different languages. So, as I've traveled the world, and most of my audiences, let's face it, have spoken English or while they haven't been U.S. people, they have been people from other parts of the world. But I can't explain to you how many millions upon millions of miles I've flown. And today, people come to me when we're getting on a plane. They say, Kreskin, are we going to make it on this flight? Because flying is not what it once was. As I'm sure some of you guys know, flights are delayed all over the place. And I can't predict that they're going to be delayed. Otherwise, I would make sure I miss that flight.
A little bit about the movie as far as the road manager. How many road managers have you had over the years, and was that a pretty realistic depiction of what they do?
Yeah, it is. I don't have lots of road managers because some of them stay with me for years upon years. The manager that was with me when I won the $22,400 worked for me for years, and but some are with me a couple of years. They're moving on with their careers and wanted to get into show business and what have you. But they're very, very trustworthy. They are. They have to know how I think. I don't consider myself a very demanding person unless things are not done. But I always want to satisfy my audience. I want my audiences to be heard clearly. And after the program, of course, because there's crowds of people who want autographs and so forth, they've got to be organized in such a way that no one's, bumping into anyone else. So it's a very dramatic job, what have you. And they have to see before I walk out on stage that the stage is properly set. Not that I have lots of equipment. I don't have much of any equipment. Just a stand-up microphone, a table, chair, a few chairs. I have maybe 10 or 15 chairs sometimes on stage because if I'm doing a full evening program, now my programs are usually an hour and a half, but a lot of my shows are 2.5 hours in length. But if I'm doing a full evening program, there's a first and a second half. And the second half fascinates audiences because I proceed to devote that program to show the audience why I am convinced, as a scientist with a degree in psychology, even though when I was going to college, I was still performing all over the place because when I started at Seton Hall University, my first year at college, one of my classes, in the first few months, I only attended 2 classes a month for those months. Of the daily classes, only 2. And the teachers explained to me, Kreskin, because it's with general psychology and your background and knowledge, we felt you knew what was going on, understood this, so you go on from here, but we respect your abilities. And they were I did not know this, by the way. Miss Galloway, who was my 4th and 6th grade teacher in grade school, I saw her in the latter years of her life when she was staying at a special care home. And but I did not know about this. She started my performing in grade school, in fourth grade. I would do every Friday a show for the audience. And then by the time I was in sixth grade, of course, that was regular. And so, but I never knew this. After I left grade school, I never realized that she quietly on her own wrote a letter or called my head teacher in each of the grades I had, whether it was junior high, high school, what have you, and said, "We don't understand what he does, but you must do everything you can to support him, as it's a special gift." Can you imagine a teacher going to the trouble of doing something like that? That is a rare gift. I didn't know it until after she died. Then they told me. She didn't want them to tell me. I was very moved. So I've been very blessed. Not that I've stolen anything, not have pickpockets on that. No, I don't do that.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
It's got to be inspiring for teachers to hear when they're in your audience.
How we don't realize that when we give out a piece of advice or say something, that sometimes the words we say can have a tremendous impact in the future of someone's life. Very important.
Well, Kreskin, it's always great to talk to you. And as we kind of wrap up, what can we do for you? How do folks get in contact with you? And I know you've got, you're working on YouTube videos, podcasts, things like that. What can we do for you?
Well, I do every week now. I do a broadcast called The Great Buck Howard. What's on My Mind. It's called What's on My Mind. Not the movie. The movie is The Great Buck Howard. But it's what's on my mind, and you go onto the internet to learn about it. You just watch What's on My Mind. Go to youtube.com/The Amazing Kreskin channel. The other one is, if you want to learn more about my appearances, what have you, just go to www.amazingkreskin.com and you'll find out my appearances around the world. And by the way, I never say my ending. I say to you guys, and I mean this, I never say goodbye. I'll just say in all my heart and soul, to be continued.
Thank you.
I like that.
Thank you, Kreskin. We appreciate you. We appreciate you being on the podcast, and we'll talk again.
Thanks.
Thank you. That is the Amazing Kreskin on the Crawfordsville Peachcast.
Central Indiana Rubber Products provides the power for you. Central Indiana Rubber Products, or CIR, keeps farm equipment and local manufacturing processes running with gaskets, belts, seals, and O-rings, among a variety of other products and services. Employee-owned and always customer-focused. Central Indiana Rubber Products, 989 West, 83 North, Crawfordsville, and at indianarubber.com. Central Indiana Rubber Products, or CIR, power for you.
Crawfordsville Peachcast. I'm Dave Peach, and what an honor to talk to Kreskin. How many appearances on the Tonight Show, David?
I think 88 in total. I don't know. We may be there's some different numbers on that, but over 60 with Johnny Carson. But I believe his span goes from the original host Steve Allen through into the current, with no Jay Leno appearances, I believe.
But Jay Leno did appear in the movie.
Jay Leno did appear in the movie, and was funny along with Tom Arnold in a scene that it was kind of the full circle, but it seemed appropriate.
Well, again, The Great Buck Howard, an 2008 movie starring John Malkovich as Buck Howard, Colin Hanks as Troy Gable, Emily Blunt as Valerie Brennan, Ricky Jay as Gil Bellamy, Steve Zahn as Kenny, a ton of cameos. David, give us the plot of this movie. How did it all come about?
Quickly, I would say, okay, Sean McGinley directed this movie and wrote this movie from his experience as a former road manager for the Amazing Kreskin. So his character, Colin Hanks, is basically a guy in law school we start out with who's not happy to be in law school and is in there to please his father and his family. And because he's supposed to be, drops out, answers an ad, and the next thing you know, Kreskin's road manager is either quitting or being fired, and he's the man. So we basically follow this guy, a 20-something kid, who is taking up this road manager position with this kind of eccentric mentalist who he's vaguely aware of. And so that's kind of how we get into it. And then Cincinnati is that's kind of our catalysts and what happens in Cincinnati.
Well, in Cincinnati, they have a little trouble till they finally get the limo, right?
Yeah, I mean that's where he wants to set up his big stunt, right? Because he knows, even though he's not letting on, that his star has started to fade. So he basically teases that this is going to be his big stunt, and basically this publicist, portrayed by Emily Blunt, is able to get a good contingent of the Cincinnati press there to cover his event, which is basically he's going to put all these people to sleep. And what happens while he's doing this, former local mayor, gone reality show, talk show host, Jerry Springer.
The late,
right?
great Jerry Springer.
How does Jerry Springer factor into this movie? Well, he is supposedly in a car wreck. And so all the local press has to leave because, as she explained, it was nearby. And so they all leave. And then there's hardly any coverage. And so Kreskin is very, very, very mad.
You would think one of them would have stayed, but for the sake of the movie, they all left.
This is pre everybody having a cell phone, so nobody can whip it out. And because, of course, the story here is that Kreskin did it. He put them all asleep, but he's mad because nobody's going to know about it. So after he fires Emily Blunt, the next thing we know, Kreskin's down. He's down, but we're talking Buck Howard. So Buck Howard's down. And he's had a heart attack, Dave. And he's getting mouth to mouth from the woman who's saying,
she's doing the chest compressions.
Oh, she's doing the chest.
That's how he pinched a nerve. He pinched a nerve.
That's how he pinched a nerve. So, but there's a great scene in the hospital, right?
Yeah, I mean, all Earth opens up in the hospital.
Yeah, and that's where the first time we see the Buck Howard character let on that he is aware that his star has been on the wane for a while, and he admits that even though he was on Johnny 61 times the last 10 years, he wasn't on. And so it's endearing in that he feels that he's a frail vessel and he's letting on to the one person, because one of the stories here is the mystery of who this guy is. I mean, there's these scenes where they pull the character aside, the Colin Hanks character, and say, is he gay? And Colin Hanks just says, I don't know. And then they were like, well, is it a ruse? And he's like, I don't know. And I mean, that's part of the cool part of the movie, is that we never learn, right? We never learn the truth.
We never, yeah. And a lot of it centers around the check at the end of the performance, and you heard Kreskin talk about that. And what's kind of heartwarming in the movie is the it's not like Hoosiers, it's not like Rocky, it's not like Miracle, but there is that moment when everything just comes together, and all of a sudden he's on Regis and Kelly. He is going to be on the Tonight Show. Doesn't work out. He's on with Martha Stewart. He's on with Jon Stewart. He's on Conan. I mean, he is just, he's on entertainment shows. Mary Hart talks about him. And there is that moment. And then it ends up kind of, so in this particular movie, it's not everything is fantastic and they roll the credits. It's everything is fantastic. And then it starts to unravel, and then the movie ends.
And that's where I think, this was probably a hard movie to market. If I went back and watched the trailer. If you watch the opening credits, it's marketed kind of as a kooky comedy. If you watch just those two things, where this is kind of a heartwarming, there's truth to this. I mean, what's interesting is, again, after he goes through this, and like I say, if you're a fan of the montage, this movie's got some good ones, right? It really does. Because it's got Buck Howard arriving into these small towns at, he's Bakersfield or
I love
Akron.
this town.
Exactly. And so he gives the same
wild?
spiel.
Isn't that wild?
Which I've gone back and looking at footage. That is a direct lift from Kreskin. The isn't that wild? He did kind of say that.
Isn't that wild, folks?
So, but that second big montage when he comes out of it and like the piece is Vegas, like that's the pie that he gets for this second slice of, you're in the zeitgeist of pop culture again. And it doesn't go well, let's just say. But in the end, when the Colin Hanks character has a chance to go see him in Bakersfield, ironically, where we begin our relationship, he's back there. And when he has almost like another grown-up discussion with his old boss years removed, it's almost like he sees the insight, because whether or not he tanked at Vegas or, for a reason, because he said, no, this is where I'm supposed to be with these people in these towns doing this show. And Dave, I felt that in our few minutes with him, right?
Yeah.
He's a performer. He's going to be a performer while he's breathing. He is a performer. We asked, where do you like to go to? I mean, he goes places to be Kreskin. He doesn't go places to, hang out. I don't believe. He's Kreskin, man.
Yeah, he is true to being Kreskin, and everything that he does is about being Kreskin. I think in my life, not that it's about my life, but here I am doing a podcast with my good buddy Dave Meyer. I also do basketball games and do other things. Sometimes I think maybe I should have just stuck to being, this or that, and I would have been. But I kind of like the variety. Doing the different characters, if you will. But toward the end of this movie, when he couldn't find the money in Bakersfield, was there a little bit of a? And I know it's totally legit, but did you get the feeling that perhaps there was some eye movement or something from Colin Hanks, Troy Gable, kind of helping him there, or is that a mystery that they left unsolved, or was that am I totally out on a limb here?
No, you know what? Here's the thing. That's like I think that's the bell that gets rung that you can only hear if you believe in the angels. I think if you wanted to see that, you saw it. I didn't, but I don't know if I was looking for it at that point, because I wanted him to recover. I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe. And I think that's part of there's an infectious positivity to this guy, especially the fact that he's 88 years old and still has this energy connected to what he's about, And so, I can't, when Malkovich, the character, is, it looks like he's done again, and you really don't want it to end this way. And then, after being on with him, what did he say? Like 11, 12 times among thousands and thousands of.
Yeah, it really comes down to the check thing, doesn't it? And
yeah.
It's the, it's only, and you can only imagine how he does that. And, he's got to just be a tremendous observer of people and how they're acting and how they're looking and how he looks at them and how they react to him.
One of the questions I wanted to ask, or I thought about asking, but I thought, no, I'm not going to ask this, is what is it you're feeling when you believe the check is near? Like how does that? And I'm because that, as I'm watching because you can watch this, there's YouTube, you can watch him doing this, and it is much as a little bit portrayed in the movie. He definitely is in a state when he's doing this, and he's asking for quiet. In fact, obviously when we're talking to him and he referenced, some things that happened where it was loud, and that was more of a challenge, although he also said he could decipher 10 different or 12 different conversations going on at the same time. which I'm Dave, he's never had ADHD is all I can say. Cause yeah. Anywho, well, Dave,
The great
what do
Buck
we, I
Howard.
mean,
What's the what does it all mean, Dave?
well, first of all, I've not seen Don Most or Donnie Most as we used to know him in a movie in quite a while. And so
I had to do a double take. I go, that's Donnie Most, and then at the end they said it's Don Most. So
and I
at
believe
some
Dave,
point he had to go to Don.
exactly. I believe he's a successful lounge singer in the Southern California area. And for this, he played kind of the FU guy to telling Kreskin that, sorry, we bumped you, but we'll have you back on next week. And you feel very proud when Kreskin kind of sticks to his guns and says, no, I'm not doing Jay Leno and walks out.
No, it's over. It's over at that point. So hard to categorize this movie as a comedy, as a drama. It was I call it a really good story.
It is a good story, and it's rooted in a unique being. And I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff out there, but there aren't more Kreskins. If they are, they don't. You would think they would have a better publicist, right? Because there are not people that are doing this. I've never heard anybody else to do any gig and say, hide my check and watch me find it. I mean, that if he does nothing else, that in and of itself will keep him unique. I think people are amazed that he's still out there in his own way. I wonder if this movie would have come out in a different time. Say instead of 2008, it came out, maybe early 2000s or even in the 90s, when maybe there was still his core audience was still going to see movies, right? And movies were, maybe at time with a good cast, because obviously it was tough to sell that movie. In some of the research, I see Tom Hanks basically pitching after showing this at festivals. So this was not something that the studio commissioned and, had a big budget. This was something that was well done based on an idea and getting behind it. So I think I probably will watch it again because I think there's a lot more laughs in it, really, that I think I was kind of just skimming through, but I enjoyed it.
Very much so. The great Buck Howard on the Crawfordsville Pete's Cast, Untoasted 08. I think next up it's we go back to the go-to. That's somebody that was in Godfather. Moving on. I don't even know his name. Senator Geary. He's in the movie One-on-One with Robbie Benson.
Dave, I should know this. I will know it on the next one. He was a bad guy. He was, I feel like he played this character version in quite a few movies during this time.
I can't remember seeing One-on-One, so I'm looking forward to watching it myself. I probably saw it at some point, but it's been so long I forgot about it.
I think I saw it in the movies. I believe there's a Seals and Crofts.
Oh, you were going to go there, weren't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to
scary.
You got to love that. And I know it's Robbie Benson. Who's the female in the movie One-on-One? Do we know?
Yeah.
I can't wait to find out.
Here, Dave, I'll say this. She's married to Michael McKean from Spinal Tap.
She's married to Michael McKean. Boy, the mysteries here. I can't wait to watch it.
Our crack research staff is going to get going on this,
and it is not related to the Hall & Oates song from 1982. One-on-One, different concept, different thing. I think One-on-One, probably, because I'm very, very smart. I think One-on-One might have a couple of different meanings in the movie, but we'll find that out as well on the next episode of Untoasted.
Dave, always a pleasure.
Yes, and we will be back at it. Again, big thanks to Kreskin for joining us on Untoasted today. I'll try to stay out of announcer mode and get into podcast mode, kind of a get to podcast mode here. We are sponsored by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892, and also Central Indiana Rubber Products, CIR. We thank them. And again, thanks to Dave Meyer Thanks to Curtis Broadstreet here at the Radio Ranch and to Dane Schuler at Up There Media. This is the Crawfordsville Peachcast. I'm Dave Peach. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the Crawfordsville Peachcast, sponsored by Tri-County Bank, your community bank since 1892. Tri-County Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. I'm Dave Peach. Join us every Thursday for a new episode on Apple or Spotify. Please like, subscribe, and download the Crawfordsville Peachcast. This podcast was produced and edited by Up There Media and is a presentation of Fork Broadcasting Digital.